Hi, this is Charlie Hesse from Tropical Birding and welcome to this virtual tour of Scotland and Ireland. I am from the UK originally. I was born in England. My grandmother is Scottish, my grandfather is Irish, so I have some cultural heritage. I also spent 4 years at university in Scotland, in Aberdeen, so I know the place pretty well and it's very close to my heart. It's a great tour. It's got some wonderful wildlife, beautiful scenery, really interesting culturally. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. Let's start with an overview of the area. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland comprises of 4 home nations: England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. The Republic of Ireland is a separate country in the south. The island issue is a complicated one. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail here, but just to say that the situation has improved a lot. There was the Troubles went on for many decades, and then finally there was a laying down of arms and a dialogue between the different sides, and now the situation is a lot better. And there's been devolution in the UK. Northern Ireland has its own assembly, and Scotland as well. It's got its own parliament where they can make their own laws. Yeah, so things have changed a lot. Let's start with a closer look at Scotland. We're going to begin the tour in Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland. I've zoomed in here on the Edinburgh Castle, which is on top of a big hill above the nice Princes Street Gardens. You can see here to the right of the castle here, there's a road called the Royal Mile which goes down. It's a very nice historical area. There's a lot to see in Edinburgh, so I would definitely recommend people arrive a couple of days early to do some sightseeing. This is a photo of the castle up on the hill and the gardens at the bottom. On the Royal Mile there's a lot of very old buildings, a lot of very quaint shops selling Scottish food, whiskey, and even kilts. So yeah, very interesting place to go. A lot of pubs around. So pub culture is very important in the UK and in Ireland, so it's definitely worth checking out some pubs. The food in the UK is not terribly famous, but I must say in recent years it's improved a lot, and I'm surprised what good food was available on this tour. This is a very favourite dish here, curry, very popular, and of course a bit of beer. Some nice churches. This is St Mary's Cathedral. Before the tour starts, I'm going to show you a place nearby called North Berwick. It's only a short drive. We don't currently include it on the tour, but we may do in future. It's a really wonderful place to visit. There's a couple of islands off the shore here. Just above North Berwick here is Craigleith, which has some nice nesting seabirds. And here is the famous Bass Rock, which I'm going to show you. Here you can see the Bass Rock from the shore. This was a core of an extinct volcano. We're going to take a boat ride out there. You can see it looks quite white. And as you get closer, you'll see that white is not the rocks, but actually it's just full of northern gannets, up to 150,000 birds. It's absolutely spectacular. The Latin name of the northern gannet is Sula bassana, and it's actually named after this rock, the Bass Rock. It's a wonderful opportunity for photography. You can get really nice shots of northern gannets in flight, and we get quite close to some nesting birds as well, and you can see them doing some courtship display there, pointing at the sky and tapping bills. Really photogenic birds, so yeah, definitely a worthwhile trip. Some other birds we might see include black-legged kittiwake, and if we're lucky, maybe even great skua. On to Craigleith Island, you can see to the left here. This is not as steep. Here we'll see some nesting common guillemots, or common moors as they're known in North America. Also razorbills and the beautiful Atlantic puffin, which is a very important breeding site for it. Okay, from Edinburgh we're going to start the tour, and one of our first sites is going to be Glen Shee. Glen Shee is a ski resort, and it's a nice place to check out some Scottish Highland birds. This is the habitat around here, a lot of heather, it's a moorland, The heather are these low bushes that have these little pink flowers on, very fragrant, makes very nice honey. But yeah, some really interesting birds here. This is one of our targets, the red grouse. People in North America will know it as the willow ptarmigan. This is an endemic subspecies to the UK, Scotica, and it doesn't turn white at all in winter. We may see our first red deer in this area, and maybe even a mountain hare. This is our main bird target, the ring ouzel. Looks very similar to the Eurasian blackbird, but it's got this white crescent on its chest. It's a migrant, nests around here, and often we can find a pair close to the ski centre. We may find our first Eurasian curlews around here, and last time we had some common house martins nesting on the buildings of the ski centre. From Glen Shee, we're going to go down into the town of Granton-on-Spey. This is the Spey River, and you'll see Granton is surrounded by nice forests here. We're going to stay at the Granton Arms. It's a very nice old hotel, a very nice restaurant inside, and they even have a nature centre inside, which is a nice resource for birders. We're going to start some birding nearby in the woodlands. There's some pine forests here, and also some broadleaves. These are some silver birch trees. In here we should see some red squirrels. These are the native squirrels to the UK. We also have the more common grey squirrel, the eastern grey squirrel, introduced from North America. These red squirrels are quite rare now, but they're still common in the Scottish Highlands. We're also going to be looking for the crested tit, very cute little bird. And in this area we'll be looking for the Scottish crossbill. There are up to 3 species of crossbills: the red crossbill, the Scottish crossbill, and even sometimes the parrot crossbill. The Scottish crossbill's bill is intermediate between the red and the parrot crossbills. We may also see other birds like goldcrest. From Granton, we're going to go down to the RSPB reserve at Loch Garten. This is the Scottish Osprey Centre. You can see it's also surrounded by nice forest here. Interestingly, when I was a kid, maybe 12 years old, I did a sponsored birdwatch. They were trying to raise money to purchase more forest here. And I did a little sponsored event to try and raise money to buy some land here. So I managed to pay for an acre of forest here. So I was quite proud of that when I was a kid. Yeah, Loch Garten itself is very scenically beautiful. Hopefully we'll see some ospreys here. Ospreys are very common in other parts of the world, but in the UK they're not very common at all. Scotland has got a breeding population. At the visitor centre, they've often got a camera on a nest, and you can watch that from the visitor centre and also see them in the scope. There are capercaillie around here, very, very difficult to see. I was lucky enough to see one morning just along the edge of the road. I was driving along and saw a big bird and stopped, and there was this female capercaillie just sat there. So with a lot of luck, we may even find a capercaillie. It's the largest member of the grouse family. On Loch Garten, we can also see the common golden eye. On some lakes nearby, we might find the Slavonian grebe, or the horned grebe as it's called in North America. Quite a threatened species in Europe now. And in some of the open fields, we might even find our first roe deer. At night, we're going to go into a private estate called the Rocky Mercus Estate. And there they have a night hide. And we're going to go in and look for some mammals. Scotland gets dark pretty late in summer, so it doesn't really get dark until about 10 p.m. So we're probably going about 9 and staying there until 12 or even 1 in the morning. This is the main thing we're going to be looking for, the pine marten, very rare animal in the UK. They put out peanuts for these, and they're very keen on peanuts and also sometimes a boiled egg. We've got a decent chance to see the pine marten, but we've got a very good chance to see the badger. There's many badgers come in every night to come in and feed on the peanuts. You can see one here chowing away. They're really wonderful animals, the European badger. But it's a great opportunity to see this animal. The next day, we're going to go up to the Cairngorms National Park. We're going up into the mountains. Really spectacular place. Just going to zoom in a little bit here for you. We go to a large parking area, and from there's hiking trails that go up into the hills. How far up we go depends on the clients. If we've got a fit group, we might go quite high up, all the way to the top here, where there's some very special birds I'll mention in a second. This is the scenery on the way up, very scenic area. These are not a native species, reindeer, but there is a feral population in the Cairngorms National Park, which are quite interesting to see. You can see we're getting higher and higher, and up here we should hopefully find the ptarmigan. Not an easy bird to find. They're very well camouflaged, as you can see. We often hear their calls. They say, "Here comes the bride." But scanning the large boulders and stuff, we can often pick them out. If we do manage to get to the top, we have a chance to see this very beautiful bird, the Eurasian dotterel, one of the most beautiful shorebirds in the world. Next on the tour, we're going to be going to the Findhorn Valley. We're going to leave Granton early and drive down into the Findhorn Valley. This is what it looks like on the ground, very beautiful scenery. And here we're going to look for golden eagles. This is one of the best places to find golden eagles. You often see them flying along the sides of this big valley. There's some other nice birds we're going to look for. Actually not a native species, the red-legged partridge and the ring-necked pheasant. But yeah, both quite beautiful established species. Often on the sides of the valley we also see red deer. From the Findhorn Valley we're going to continue around and drive along the edge of Loch Ness. Here you can see Loch Ness, and there's a nice castle along there. Still yet to see Nessie, but you never know. From Loch Ness, we're going to drive towards the Isle of Skye, and we're going to stop at Skye Bridge at the Kyle of Lochalsh. From here, you can see it's very clear water, and it's a wonderful place to look for otters. And this was a little bit distant, it's not a great photo, but we've got quite a decent chance to see otters here. From Skye Bridge, we're going to drive along the Isle of Skye to the port of Uig, where we're going to get on a ferry. On the way, we may be lucky enough to see a white-tailed sea eagle. There's a reintroduced population here, these huge raptors, and they're starting to do quite well. From the port of Uig, we're going to take a ferry across to the Outer Hebrides, to the Uist Islands. On the ferry, we should see some seabirds, like herring gulls. We might see some more common moors, common guillemots, and maybe a common shag. So from Uig, we're going to cross over to Loch Maddie on North Uist. The Outer Hebrides are absolutely beautiful. They're breathtaking. They have white sand beaches and crystal clear waters and big meadows full of wildflowers. It's just an absolute paradise. They're really scenically beautiful. Here you can see a nice little foxglove flower. The Outer Hebrides are a stronghold of Celtic culture, and there's still many native Gaelic speakers here. All the road signs are written in Gaelic. You'll notice that those Gaelic names are written in larger letters than the English. It kind of feels a little bit like going back in time as well. You don't see many of these old phone boxes in the UK anymore, but there's still quite a few over there. There's lots of nice little cafes and bakeries where we sort of stop in for lunches. Yeah, like I say, it's very scenically beautiful. They have these flowering meadows, and we're going to start our birding here. This is one of our main targets, the corncrake. This was once found throughout the UK. But now it's been wiped out of most places and is now only found on these remote western islands. Other birds we might find in these meadows are Eurasian skylark, another bird that's become very rare in the UK, the corn bunting, and a lot of breeding shorebirds. This is Eurasian oystercatcher. We should also see the common snipe, which are very visible perched up on posts in their breeding season, and we might also see them doing their flight displays. This is the northern lapwing, another very beautiful shorebird, very distinctive looking, beautiful iridescence on the wing, and a really distinctive call. We're also going to bird the coast. You get a lot of kelp beds, and when the kelp is washed ashore, you'll get a lot of shorebirds foraging amongst it. This is the common ringed plover. You should get some breeding dunlin. And sometimes we get a rare bird like this Iceland gull. There's also important breeding colonies of Arctic terns. Inland, we should also get a few raptors. You can get things like golden eagles here, hen harriers, and also this short-eared owl. From North Uist, we're going to drive down through Benbecula and then down to South Uist. Here we're going to look for some breeding redneck phalaropes. This is the colourful female here. We should also see some interesting domestic animals like this Highland cow and also Shetland ponies. This is my boss Keith Barnes taking a picture. There's also some very old ways of life here. People still do peat cutting. You can see the farmer here carrying his peat off. From South Uist, we're going to drive to the small island of Eriskay and then take a boat across to Barra, which is this southern island here, and head down to a place called Castle Bay. From here, we're going to take a ferry back across to the mainland. This is a ferry just leaving the town of Castle Bay. This is a wonderful boat ride, really good for seabirds and also sea mammals. We should see some dolphins. We can get two species of dolphins, the common and bottlenose dolphins, and also harbour porpoise. You can also get basking sharks. People have also seen orcas on this trip. So it's a really wonderful trip for sea watching. You can also get things like kittiwakes. We also had a little gull one year. It's really scenically beautiful as well. We'll pass lots of little islands. On some of these we might see some grey seals. We even had a great northern diver, a common loon, on one trip. From Castle Bay we'll head to the port town of Oban. Here's a picture when we're coming in of Oban, a very sort of old port town. And from here we're going to head up to the town of Fort William, where we'll stay for one night. In this area there's quite a few distilleries, and we may have time to visit one of them and do a little whiskey tour. These are great. You get to try quite a few different whiskies, and they tell you all about how the whiskies are made. Bit of whiskey tasting. This is me pretending to drink whiskey. Those of you that know me will know that I'm a teetotaler. From Fort William we're going to go up into the Glen Nevis Valley. Up on the left there you'll see Britain's highest mountain, Ben Nevis. And often we'll get very exhausted hikers walking down this road on their way back. But we're going to do a bit of nice relaxing birding. Some very nice rivers along here and some nice woodland. We should see some common birds like Eurasian blackbird, European robin, common chaffinch. And our main target is this white-throated dipper. There's only 5 species of dippers in the world, and this is a really good place to see the European one. It's also a nice area for butterflies, so we should see a few different species here. Okay, from Fort William, we are now going to drive down towards Glasgow, where we finish the tour. Those that are going to join the extension, we're going to take another flight from Glasgow across to Belfast. Belfast is the capital of Northern Ireland. We're not going to stay here. We're going to go straight up to the north coast and the world famous Giant's Causeway. There's a really rugged shoreline here, quite beautiful. We're going to be staying in the Causeway Hotel, which is a really very comfortable hotel, and it's just situated right at the causeway. So the next morning we can just walk down and we're right there first thing. I'm not a geologist, but I believe this was made by rapidly cooling lava about 60 million years ago. It created these basalt columns, and some of them are really, really high and really spectacular. There's a couple of park benches there with some information about the legend. There was an Irish giant, apparently. It's called Finn McCool, and he built a causeway across to Scotland. And there was a Scottish giant that wanted to come and attack Ireland called Benandonna and Finn's wife advised him to dress like a baby, and the Scottish giant came across and he saw this this giant baby, and he thought, if the baby's that big, then how big is the father? And he fled back to Scotland and he tore up the causeway behind him. So yeah, it's quite a nice alternative story. Around here we should see some common eiders, even breeding at this time of year, some nice chicks. A few other birds we might find, like the rock pipit, greater whitethroat. This area was also used a lot in the filming of Game of Thrones. Those that are fans of Game of Thrones might recognise this as the scene where Theon Greyjoy came back to the Iron Islands. This is another famous scene in Game of Thrones where Catelyn Stark was walking down the King's Road. These are ancient beech trees and a really beautiful scene. Okay, from here we're going to drive down to Dublin in the Republic of Ireland. And we're going to be crossing an international border between Belfast and Dublin. And the only way you know is by the signs changing from miles to kilometres. There's no border crossing or anything there anymore. It's very nice. Dublin is a really interesting city, famous for Guinness. We should see the Guinness brewery. They've even got a Guinness museum that you can visit that tell you about the Guinness story. There's a very famous cathedral, St. Patrick's Cathedral, and the university, Trinity College. So yeah, it's nice to see a few sights in Dublin. We're going to start our birding down here at a place called Dunleary, where there's a harbour. We're going to walk along this little harbour wall. Along here we might find some common birds like grey heron, but our main target is the Mediterranean gull. They should be in breeding plumage at this time of year. The next day we're going to head to a place called Glendalough. Really wonderful place. It's a monastic site in the base of the Wicklow Hills, and really ancient ruins there. These are the Wicklow Hills here that we're going to drive over. Very wild scenes. We may see some fallow deer along here. Not native species, but nice to see. And this is Glendalough. This is the ancient site of a monastery. There's still some nice parts of the monastery left. This is a tower here. You'll notice there's a door sort of part way up the tower. This was to protect the monks from raiding Vikings. When they saw the Vikings were coming, they would ring a bell and they'd put a ladder up here, and then they'd all escape up into the tower and pull the ladder up after them. But after that, the Vikings got wise and they started lighting fires around the base, sort of smoking them out. But yeah, a lot of history here. A lot of old little buildings and churches in this area, and some of them are dating back to like the 6th century. I mean, it's really pretty amazing. And they're all surrounded by beautiful woodland as well, so we get to do some birding too. This is actually the loch here, Glendalough. Really beautiful scenery. Some of the birds that we might find include the Eurasian tree creeper, the nice long-tailed tit, and not a very beautiful bird, but it's got a beautiful song, the willow warbler. This is the Eurasian wren, which is split from the winter wren. Looks very similar, but I got a little bit of video of it stretching, and also had it doing a little bit of song here as well. They've got a very beautiful song, the Eurasian wrens. From Glendalough, we're going to head back to the coast, and we're going to go to the East Coast Nature Reserve. There's some very nice birds here. Some of the birds we might see are common reed bunting, European goldfinch, European greenfinch, and European stonechat. The next day we're going to be crossing over to the west coast of Ireland, to the town of Lisdon Varna. On the way we're going to be stopping at the Burren National Park. Some very interesting geology in this area, a lot of exposed rocks, very nice for wildflowers too. Here we should see northern wheatears, meadow pipits, and yeah, a lot of nice wildflowers. In this area, there's also another scene from a TV show. Some of you may have seen Father Ted. It was an Irish comedy about some priests. Absolutely hilarious. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's really funny. Father Ted. But on the way, we pass the house that was used in the filming of that. We're going to use Lisdoonvarna as a base to visit the Cliffs of Moher. These are the cliffs here, really spectacular cliffs falling down to the sea. Here's a little plaque in memory of all the people that have lost their lives on the cliffs. People do actually fall off these cliffs quite often, and you'll often see people like visitors just going to the edge and taking selfies and stuff. I think there's definitely been a few Darwin Award winners, but yeah, quite sad. From the top of the cliffs, we're going to be looking for fulmars. It's a wonderful place. You get them soaring by at eye level, really spectacular. And sometimes you can look, you don't get too close to the edge, but you can sort of look down and see some fulmar nests. And then looking down below, we can also see things like guillemots and razorbills and some puffins as well. On the cliff top, sometimes we see choughs. These are quite a rare bird in the UK now. And we may also see hooded crows. Carrion crows, they're all black ones, are found in most of the UK, but in the sort of western parts and in Ireland, you get the hooded crow. On our last morning, we're going to head to a little woodland called Dromore Woods. Here they have a nice lake where we might see a few species like great crested grebe and mute swans. And they've got some really beautiful woodland inside where we might get a few more common species that we haven't seen yet. Some of the birds we might see are song thrush, Eurasian blue tit, very beautiful bird. And finally, we might see the Eurasian bullfinch. Okay, that's the end of the trip. From here, we're going to drive to the nearby Shannon Airport, where we'll connect with international flights. It's a wonderful trip. There's a lot of amazing wildlife, really beautiful scenery, and fascinating culture. So I think you will really enjoy it. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.